Hi, guys. Welcome back. I hope you had a really great spring break. I'm sure, well, it's kind of hard to say. It didn't even feel like spring break to me because I was working. But there were some nice days, some nice weather days. I went home and I would go outside and play with the dogs. I went and saw the horses on Saturday and gave them apples. Hope you guys were able to get outside and enjoy the weather. Today, I'm going to start a book. It's a big book. When I was in second grade, my teacher read it to me. And there's many books in this series. And last week I made a video for you guys reading the very first one. Then I remembered it was spring break, so I wasn't going to post anything, give you any work. And then two, the first one's just, I think it's amazing, but a lot of people start with the one I'm going to read you today. So I thought I need you guys to like it because I like it a lot and I think you will. So I'm just going to start with the most popular one. Here is the book. It's gigantic. It's called The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. He is an English writer. He's from England. I love the way he writes. Sometimes I think English writers can be a little bit wordy because right now I'm reading for myself Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, and sometimes I feel like he talks too much. He's also English, but I love them both. This is not for kids, really. It'd be boring for you. But this is amazing. So we're going to read what it's called is The Lion, with the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I debated on whether, there's not really pictures in this book. I debated on whether I was going to show you guys pictures that I found on the internet because there are movies to this too. I don't want to ruin your imagination because I think that's one of the best parts about reading it. It's like coming up with your own idea in your head of what you think the person looks like or what do you think the setting looks like. But I decided I'd let you see a little bit. So I'm going to read the first paragraph and then I'm going to show you a picture. Okay? So there is one little picture. Make your own ideas about that. Chapter 1 is called Lucy Looks into a Wardrobe. Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. This story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to a house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. He had no wife and lived in a very large house with a housekeeper called Miss Macready and 3 servants. Their names were Ivy, Margaret, and Betty, but they do not come into this story much. He himself was a very old man with shaggy white hair which grew over most of his face as well as on his head, and they liked him almost at once. But on the first evening when he came out to meet them at the front door, he was so odd-looking that Lucy, who was the youngest, was a little afraid of him, and Edmund, who was the second youngest, wanted to laugh and had to keep pretending he was blowing his nose to hide it. So here's the first picture. This picture, watch, I'll show you both. These are the characters or the actors and actresses that play these characters in the movie. That's Peter, he's the oldest, then Susan, second oldest, Edmund, and Lucy. Lucy's the youngest, okay? And then here is, I'm pretty sure the house they use in the movie, and that's them riding up in a carriage. So if you can think about the fact that they're riding up to a house in a carriage, what time in history this happens. So I'm guessing that you're guessing that it's before cars were invented, right? So it's back in the old days. And the war that they're speaking of, I should have looked this up first. Air raids. I want to say it's World War II. I'm embarrassed. Really embarrassed if that's not right. Okay. Here we go. As soon as they had said goodnight to the professor and gone upstairs the first night, the boys came into the girls' room and they talked it over. We've fallen on our feet, and no mistake, said Peter. This is going to be perfectly splendid. That old chap will let us do anything we like. I think he's an old dear, said Susan. Oh, come off it, said Edmund, who was tired and pretending not to be tired, which made him bad-tempered. Don't go on talking like that. Like what? Said Susan. And anyway, it's time you were in bed. Trying to talk like mother, said Edmund. And who are you to say when I'm to go to bed? Go to bed yourself. Hadn't we all better go to bed? Said Lucy. I'm sure there'll be a row if anything if we're heard talking here. A row means someone's gonna throw a fit. So if the maids or someone here, they're up there talking, they're gonna get in trouble. No, there won't, said Peter. I'll tell you, this is the sort of house where no one's going to mind what we do. Anyway, they won't hear us. It's about a 10 minutes walk from here down to that dining room, and any amount of stairs and passages in between. What's that noise? Said Lucy suddenly. It was a far larger house than she had ever been in before, and thought that all those long passages and rows of doors leading into empty rooms was beginning to make her feel a little creepy. It's only a bird, silly, said Edmund. It's an owl, said Peter. This is going to be a wonderful place for birds. I shall go to bed now. I say, let's go and explore tomorrow. You might find anything in a place like this. Did you see those mountains as we came along? And the woods? There might be eagles. There might be stags. There might be hawks. A stag is a deer. Badgers, said Lucy. Foxes, said Edmund. Rabbits, said Susan. But then the next morning came, and there was a steady rain falling, so thick that when you looked out the windows you could see neither the mountains, nor the woods, nor even the stream in the garden. A garden is what English people call their yard, so it's not like there's a stream going through their garden where they're growing vegetables, it's their yard. Of course it would be raining, said Edmund. They had just finished their breakfast with the professor and were upstairs in the room he had set apart for them, a long, low room with 2 windows looking out in one direction and 2 in another. Do stop grumbling, Ed, said Susan. 10 to 1 it'll clear up in an hour or so. And in the meantime, we're pretty well off. There's a wireless and lots of books. Not for me, said Peter. I'm going to explore the house. Everyone agreed to this, and that was how the adventures began. It was the sort of house that you never seemed to come to the end of it, and it was full of unexpected places. The first doors they tried led only to spare bedrooms, as everyone had expected that they would, but soon they came to a very long room full of pictures, and there they found a suit of armor, and after that was a room hung with green, with a harp in one corner, and then came 3 steps down and 5 steps up, and then a little upstairs hall, and a door that led out into the balcony, and then a whole series of rooms that led into each other and were lined with books, almost all of them old books, some bigger than the Bible in a church. Very shortly after that they looked into a room that was quite empty except for one big wardrobe, the sort that has a looking glass in the door. Looking glass is a mirror, and a wardrobe is like a big cabinet where you would keep your clothes. And I have a picture to show you, but not just yet. There was nothing in the room at all except for a dead blue bottle on the windowsill. Nothing there, said Peter, and they trooped out again, all except for Lucy. She stayed behind because she thought it might be worthwhile trying the door to the wardrobe, even though she felt almost sure that it would be locked. To her surprise, it opened quite easily, and 2 mothballs dropped out. Now I'm going to show you the picture. Well, I can't show you the bottom one because you can't see that yet. This is a picture from the movie. All right, so this big thing is the wardrobe. This would be the room coming this way, so it's a very long room with just that at the end of it, and that's Lucy looking into it. And if you think it's a little bit weird that's lights coming out of it, it is. Because it's not like there's a light in that cabinet, you know? Something could be in there. Looking into the inside, she saw several coats hanging up, mostly long fur coats. There was nothing Lucy liked so much as the smell and feel of fur. She immediately stepped into the wardrobe and got in among the coats and rubbed her face against them, leaving the door open, of course, because she knew that it was very foolish to shut oneself into any wardrobe. Soon she went further in and found that there was a second row of coats hanging up behind the first one. It was almost quite dark in there, and she kept her arms stretched out in front of her so that she would not bump her face into the back of the wardrobe. She took a step further in, then 2 or 3 steps, always expecting to feel the woodwork against the tips of her fingers, but she could not feel it. This must be a simply enormous wardrobe, thought Lucy, going still further in and pushing the soft folds of the coats aside to make room for her. Then she noticed there was something crunching under her feet. I wonder, is that more mothballs? She thought, stooping down to feel it with her hand. But instead of feeling the hard, smooth wood of the floor of the wardrobe, she felt something soft and powdery and extremely cold. This is very queer, she said, and went on a step or two further. The next moment she found that she was rubbing her face and hands was against, or what she was rubbing against her face and hands was no longer soft fur, but something hard and rough and even prickly. Why, it's just like the branches of trees, exclaimed Lucy. And then she saw that there was a light ahead of her, not a few inches away where the back of the wardrobe ought to have been, but a long way off. Something cold and soft was falling on her. A moment later she found that she was standing in the middle of the wood at night time with snow under her feet and snowflakes falling in the air. Lucy felt a little frightened, but felt very inquisitive and excited as well. She looked back over her shoulder, and there between the dark tree trunks she could still see the open doorway of the wardrobe and even caught a glimpse of the empty room from which she had set out. She had, of course, left the door open, for she knew it was a very silly thing to shut oneself in a wardrobe. It seemed to still be daylight there. I can always get back if anything goes wrong, thought Lucy. She began to walk forward, crunch, crunch over the snow, and through the woods towards the other light. So real quick, I'll say, remember, they just had breakfast and just started exploring. Now she's walked through the wardrobe, that big cabinet in the room, and it just said that it's nighttime, so something to pay attention to. In about 10 minutes, she reached it and found it was a lamppost. As she stood looking at it, wondering why there was a lamppost in the middle of a wood and wondering what to do next, she heard a pitter-patter of feet coming towards her. And soon after that, a very strange person stepped out from among the trees into the light of the lamppost. He was only a little taller than Lucy herself and carried over his head an umbrella, white with snow. From the waist upward he was like a man, but his legs were shaped like a goat's. The hair on them was glossy black, and instead of feet he had goat's hoofs. He also had a tail, but Lucy did not notice this at first because it was neatly caught up over his arm that held the umbrella to keep it from trailing in the snow. He had a red woolen muffler around his neck, so that's a scarf, and his skin was rather reddish too. He had a strange but pleasant little face with a short pointed beard and curly hair, and out of the hair there stuck two horns, one on each side of his forehead. One of his hands, as I have said, held the umbrella, and in the other arm he carried several brown paper parcels. What with the parcels and the snow, it looked as if he had just been doing Christmas shopping. He was a fawn, and when he saw Lucy, he gave such a start of surprise that he dropped all of his parcels. "Goodness gracious me!" exclaimed the fawn. That's the end of chapter 1. So I have a picture of him as well. This is a drawing, not from the movie. So there he is with his umbrella, his muffler, and these are his parcels, they're packages. And look, he's a man up top and then a goat on the bottom half, and that's called a fawn. So that's chapter 1 of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. It was raining like crazy this morning, and now it's not raining that much, but as I was thinking about reading this to you guys, I was thinking about reading you this story and Lucy finding this type of adventure in her house. So they're in a house, it's raining, and she goes into what we can assume is a different world. So I don't expect you guys to find such magic in your house, but maybe you could. So, and now it's not really raining that much anymore, but just something cool. I'd like to know what you guys think of the first chapter, if you like it. If you don't, give it time, because the story's so cool. And maybe in the future, after we finish reading it, you guys could look it up and watch it, because it's just such a good children's book. It's such a cool adventure. So look forward to hearing what you think. And tell me about your spring break. If you did anything cool, you can tell me anything. Just text me on Talking Points and just say hi, because I miss you guys and I would love to hear from you. So ask your parents if they've received a message on Talking Points, and see if you can write back to me. I would love that, okay? So I will talk to you soon, and I'll probably post the next chapter on Wednesday or something like that, okay? Can't wait to hear from you guys. Bye.